How you doing today?
Fantastic. My name is Zach. I'm with the Japanese Entertainment Museum. And today's been right here. As I point, frame it, make it look good. It's been great so far. It's been a very good day as far as traffic. I like Sundays at this con because of how light it can be at times, where there's still people roaming around and doing stuff, but you can still get a chance to talk to people as they're walking through. You can go ahead and really kind of go, "How you doing? What do you like about here? What you enjoying about the con? Who you here to see?" And that's the important part of this con is people you get to hear, you get to see, and the companies you don't normally get to go ahead and get a chance to talk to. They're here and they're pushing their books and they're telling you about everything they're doing. So it's just awesome. It's been a great day.
Yeah, it's nice when you see some of the people just kind of wandering around. I actually saw Joel from Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, it was. Now, did he have the? Because I saw a couple people walking around with the with the puppets from the theaters. Where's that them, or was that just some cosplayers?
That was just some cosplayers. He was just like walking. He was like had his bag with him, and
oh, that's so cool.
So we're here at the Baltimore Comic-Con. How are you enjoying this Comic-Con?
I love this convention. I've been going to this convention for about 5-6 years since I've really gotten into comics. And this convention is so much better than a lot of the different ones I've been to because of how comics focused it is. And it's just big enough that you get some of the really cool names. Like you have Garth Ennis here signing. They've had Jason Aaron here before. You had Stan Lee come here a couple of years ago. Last year, Kevin Smith was their big media guest. So it's just big enough they can pull some cool stuff, but it's small enough that when Jason Aaron was here, I had a 20-minute conversation with him about Fogo de Chao. Well, you don't get to do that at a lot of cons. Like New York, it's thank you, it's signed, thank you, it's signed, thank you, it's signed. Here you get to spend time with some of the creators you really like and get to kind of go ahead and get a dialogue with them. And it's even better when they remember you. Justin Jordan, who's over at the other side of the convention, who's done Luther Strode, he's just released his book Spread. It's an amazing guy. One of our staff members fangirled out with him last year because of Luther Strode. They showed up again this year, and he's like, I remember you. I know who you are. And that's one of those cool moments about this con is that you get time with the creators, and if you make an impression, they'll remember you.
It's very personal here.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that Mark and everything at Cards and Comics and Collectibles, people that have put this together, they've made it to where, like you said, it's personal. Everyone here has a story about the con, and it's not necessarily a story about, oh, I had to stand in line, to stand in another line, to stand in another line. It's, I stood in line, and David Gibbons signed my stuff and was so kind and said, you're the last one I'm going to sign because this comic store is getting 500 things signed. Just tell the world of how nice and how great I am.
And I think that just goes to the sense of community that you find in this niche, which is not being a niche too much anymore. It's actually becoming very, very popular with lots of people.
It really is. It's amazing to see how the movies have really driven the industry. And Gail Simone in her keynote talked about it last night, how she now sees that it's now split 50-50 at these conventions, as where before it used to be a boys club. And she talks about how she has all these the Valkyries she spoke with and how they're dragging their boyfriends to these cons instead of it used to be the other way around. And it's not just the diversity. It's amazing to see how many people are accepting of it and how many people are willing to come out here. Because I didn't read comics as a kid. I was in an area where I didn't have access to it. But everyone that was in here and talks about the stories of, Paul Levesque had a very cool story last night about how he couldn't date. That was one of those things. Like, he was date the challenge because everyone found out he read comics and it was over. So it's one of those cool things where you can see now where it doesn't matter. We're the cool kids. We're the ones that are having fun. We're the ones that are dressing up as our favorite characters. We're the ones that are coming out here spending money and being able to go ahead and have this sense of community that's always kind of been something we all want.
It's even outside of this, I can't tell you how many different people I see wearing t-shirts, hats, merchandise. You just can be walking down the street and there's that instant connection. You're both wearing a Batman or an Avengers t-shirt and you're both like, hey.
Well, and that's the thing with things like T-Fury and the way that they've been able to go ahead and produce just all this content for people, and they sell it. If there wasn't a market there, they wouldn't sell it. It wouldn't keep showing up. T-Fury makes hundreds of dollars a day on their single shirts or one shirt a day or any of those other places. And it's because there's this love and want to go ahead and be a part of this community in some form or fashion. And this con is a huge extension of it. You see all the things going on. You see all the people around here. And you can run into people that you would never even think to talk to. It's amazing. Like I kind of get lost in it because it's just cool to go ahead and walk around and see all this stuff and go, okay, all right, this is the where it's supposed to be. This is the way of the world. This is what we've always wanted.
And if you can't tell, I grew up a geek. I grew up comic book fan, and I had like 2 friends, and everybody else was like, "Why are you reading comic books? Why are you reading? Go play sports." And it's nice to see so many like-minded people and I feel good about people who are in middle school and high school. They might not have to go through that now.
No, and that's the other thing too. I mean, take a look at what happened to Guardians of the Galaxy this summer. That's a movie that 10 years ago, if you'd have told me that was going to be made, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. It's a talking raccoon. No one's going to want to see that. Now it's the biggest movie of the summer, and it's one of those things where it's because there's this want to go ahead and see different stuff. There's good stuff on TV, there's good stuff out there, but the passion comes from the stuff like this where you can go ahead and go, I've been with this character since I was 5. And that's what's great about this area. And like you said, I think you're right. You're going to see a lot of kids really kind of evolve and become a part of this entire industry and this culture just because of how inclusive it is now. It's always been inclusive, but it's always been hidden and kind of in the dark and kind of something where people went, we don't want to go ahead and be a part of that because of the backlash. There is no backlash now. If you're not a fan, you're the uncool kid. If you're on the football team and you go, oh, those Avengers movies are terrible, you're the one that's going to get thrown in the locker with soap because of the fact that how much this has become such a part of pop culture.
Now, do you have any ideas or theories as to why now? Why are comic book and superheroes really being taken from the outside and becoming the inside?
It's just a generational thing. It's one of those things where the base keeps growing and growing and growing. You have people that started collecting comics in the 50s that end up having kids that then pushed it to their kids who were reading the Stan Lee stuff in the 60s and the 70s. And then they pushed it to their kids who were reading Frank Miller and Alan Moore's Batman and the different things. Then you go to the 90s where you have Jim Lee's X-Men, and that's where everyone started to go ahead and follow. You just keep having this generational push and push and push. And then also the other thing is that we're more connected now more than ever. You can go ahead, you can go online, and if you're in an area like where I was born, I would have been into this if I would have had an outlet. Now I have an outlet if I live in those areas. I can go to Reddit. I can go to all the different places online to go ahead and talk about this stuff. I can go to Marvel's app if there's no store, or Comixology's app, and download whatever I want to go ahead and read. And that's a big thing. And then that's not even taking into account Amazon, where it's 2-day shipping, and you want to read Garth Ennis's Punisher's Welcome Back, Frank, it's at your door right there. And because of that, because of how connected we are and how easily accessible everything is, it's really made fandom something that people can really get behind. You could know nothing about Gail Simone, and then within 2 weeks you can immerse yourself in everything she's ever written, everything she's ever done, everything she's ever been a part of, and become a huge fan of her because of that. And that's the cool. That's what's so cool, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Because of how connected we are, everyone changes that information. This is very reminiscent of people who are music fans and the way they used to go ahead and they used to swap mixtapes. And I have this old concert from the Dead, and I have this old concert from Pearl Jam. Now it's all available. It's all online. It's all there for you to go ahead and go. And comics are the same way now. You can now go ahead and read this. This is awesome. And I mean, there is torrenting, and good, bad, or indifferent. That also grows the brand and grows people's love of this stuff.
Now, with Jeppies, when you come to these cons, do you see an increase of people visiting the actual museum?
Yes, there is a huge boost because one of the things with our museum, and as awesome as it is, a lot of people don't know about it. We're still getting our name out there. We're still letting people know where we are. And because of that, when you do cons like this and you have 20 minutes, sit down and talk to somebody and tell them about, come to the museum, Action Comics #1 is on display, Detective Comics 27 is there, we have Amazing Fantasy 15, we have a Revenge of the Jedi poster that should be burnt and Fox wants it back badly. All this stuff is there, and they go, that stuff's in a museum? And it really changes their perspective of going where this stuff that they loved as a kid that for the most part people can occasionally think is throwaway, they go there and they see it on display and they see it as a representation of the way the world changes and the way the world goes forward. And that's a huge boost. And then what happens is they get excited from talking to me, they go there, they see the stuff, and then they talk to their friends about it and their friends come. So this is a great experience to go ahead and kind of grow it old-fashioned way. Go it the way that we talked about with the internet and everything, where it's word of mouth, man. That's how people get into stuff.
Now, that kind of sort of answers the follow-up question, but I'd like to know, how many people do you get that walk by and go, this is right over there and we never knew about this?
Everyone. I would say 90 to 95% of anyone that stops talk to the museum, if they haven't been there and they go, wait, this is here. This is in my hometown. Sometimes you get from people that are local, or this is right across the street and we knew nothing about it. It's cool to go ahead and see people's eyes light up, go, wait, I can go and see a copy of Action 1, or wait, you have all the McNugget buddies in the original display? It's cool to go ahead and see everyone's reaction about just the stuff they loved as a kid. And you do get that. You get the, oh my God, I want to go. And they end up going and they end up falling in love with the stuff there, and they end up falling in love with the presentation of everything.
Well, thank you for talking with us today, and thank you for your museum. I visited, it was a beautiful museum.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that Steve's collection is being appreciated by so many people, because at the end of the day, we have this collection because of Steve and because of Steve's love in general. To be fair, I honestly believe the comics industry has made the leaps and bounds it has as far as being able to get out to people because of Steve. And it's a sign of someone not just trying to make money, because he's been very blessed to make money, but it's a sign of someone who has just pure unadulterated love of this. And that's what this business should be about. It shouldn't be about, okay, we need to go ahead and make another Batman movie because it's been 3 years, or, okay, Avengers is coming out, let's go ahead and get... It's about the love of the craft and the love of all these characters that we have, and that's what all, that's why this is there, is because there's a love for it, man.
It's interesting because I went to Jeppy's twice. I went once just to go and see it, to meet everybody before we went over and filmed, and I felt really bad for the people that were talking to me while they were taking me through, because I would sit there and go, they have that. Oh my God, they have that. I had that.
I understand. If you have a moment, a funny story. When I went in there, I was one of the ones that had never been there. I went in there for my interview to go ahead and get the position I'm at now, and they walked me around before I went ahead and went in to talk to people. That was the most nerve-wracking thing ever, because I had to try and stay that professional level. But as a kid, I'm jumping up and down because I hit the room. There's action, there's detective, there's the comics I've read about, the comics that I read now. Then I go through, there's old Mickey Mouse stuff that my mother would talk about. There's the old Howdy Doody stuff that my mother would actually play with. And then you go even further, and there's my Transformers that I could never get. There's the McNugget buddies my brother horrified me with. All this stuff's there, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. And at the same time, I'm like, yes, this is very, very cool. I didn't know this was there. It was one of those things where I'm almost vibrating out of my skin, but I have to go ahead and still maintain that professionalism where I'm like, yes, this is very cool. And it's just amazing. And I was sold on the museum the first time I went through there, and that's why I feel blessed to go ahead and be a part of it.
Well, you held it together. I didn't. I actually stopped, and there was a good minute and a half where my mouth was open when I walked in and saw the first Superman and the first Batman, and I was just... there was nothing. I almost blanked out for a few seconds because of that.
You want to know what's amazing? We've had a big uptick in that now, especially with what happened with eBay recently within the last, I want to say 2 weeks, where they just sold the first Action Comics, and it was a 9.0 graded, and it sold for 3.2. So there's the relevance of it coming back in. There's the amount of money it sold for, how important it is. We have a lot of that now where people go, wait, that book is worth that much, and it's just, you have it there? Yep. So, I get that, man. The only reason I was able to have any modicum of professionalism is just because I'm like, I have to, because I want to work here. I want to live here, man.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the con.
Oh, it's going to be great. I can't wait for the rest of the day to go ahead and talk to some people, and I can't wait for tonight, after we have our extra hours, to see some of the people come over and actually get a chance to talk with them about the stuff we love.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey.
Could you introduce yourself? What's your name?
My name is Brittany Marriott, and I work at Jeppy's Entertainment Museum.
So you're going to be kind of a ringer for some of these questions.
Let's see.
Okay, so here's the first one. Okay. When do you think comics started? As we know it, like comic strips.
As comic strips. 1840s.
Yes.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm at the right job then.
You are. Okay. How old do you think character-based merchandising is?
Ooh.
And you can either give me about a year when you think it started or about how old you think it is.
Oh, I know it's been incredibly old because I know that the first really big one was definitely the Yellow Kid, who kind of started that, where you saw his face everywhere, from whiskey bottles to cigarette ads. Can't do the year though. Exactly. It's gonna kill me as soon as I get home. Oh yeah, it was blah blah blah. I don't have an answer for the year.
1890 with the Brownies.
Licensing.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now the opinion. You're off the hook for any sort of actual knowledge.
Sure.
What draws you to comics, the entertainment community, just you as a fan?
Oh, this one actually started because my dad used to read me Batman comics when I was literally in the crib, and my mom yelled at him for it because it was too boyish. And look at me now. But ever since then, I always loved comics, from Batman to The Tick when mom didn't know I was reading that. And I focused more from DC, and I'm delving more into the independent scene now with a lot of Image and IDW as well. But the love has always been there, and I just absolutely love the community and the energy that they bring whenever it comes to conventions. Like, everyone is just a gigantic happy family here. As opposed to the outside world. They don't care what you are, where you come from, how much cash you got, just as long as you love the same thing they love. And I think that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think there is a resurgence of popularity on zombies?
That is a good question, because honestly, I have no clue. They're all ghouls anyway, but that's another story. But I think it's just because there's a huge popularity as of recently, where it's just there's a stereotypical hero, gets the girl, saves the day, but zombies kind of brings back the horror that a lot of us grew up with, a lot of that scare factor that a lot of movies didn't have for a while. It just reawakens a fear that we all can get behind. So that could be it.
Okay. And final question, and you're off the hook. How do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in the comic community and comics in general?
It is growing. That I did notice. Once it becomes less of a shock that a black female could be a leader, that's when we've gotten to that point of equality where I can finally be satisfied. Of course, I love all of my, the people who started it all, from Spider-Man, who him himself was not very, wasn't very welcomed with open arms at first because he was a teenager, to even Spawn because of, the fact that he was black. That's just how it starts. We just got to get to that point, But we're not quite there yet, but I do see people trying to reach out more and trying to find different things, trying to find new ideas. And like I said before, we just have to have the time to get there. So, yeah, we're working on it, which I'm very happy for.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking with us today.
Course.
And enjoy the con.
I will. I do every con.
All right. Well, thank you for talking with us today.
Absolutely.
How you liking the con so far?
It's great. This is one of my favorite cons. I love all the kids. I love all the people here, and I'm a local, so it's like my home con.
Excellent. Now, when do you think the first comic strip, in the sense of that we know comics, started?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I know it was way before me, but it's one of those. I don't know. It didn't. I know it started. They started becoming more popular around wartime, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what year that is.
Okay, you ready to have your mind blown?
Yes.
1842.
What was it?
It was. I'm going to read this because I can always. Obadiah Oldbuck.
All right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it was just like a little collection, but it was still the first comic strip.
Right.
Before
That's really
that,
cool.
there was just political cartoons.
Right. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. All right.
All right. So, merchandising. You see toys, you see T-shirts. When do you think that started?
Oh God. Probably. I want to say around the same time, but I don't think that's right. But that's a big part of making money off of things. So I'm gonna say around the same time.
Sort of.
Sort of.
1890.
All right,
It
that's
started
not
with this
too
little
far.
thing called the Brownies.
The Brownies.
Yep.
Was that?
They were
feel like I
based
know that.
on they're not, nobody knows them now, but
Right.
they were based on Scottish folklore.
Oh.
And they were American,
Brownies.
but they were like these little like people that they were drawing. I don't know
All
how to
right.
explain it. But
I'll
yeah.
have to look it up.
Yeah. Okay, so there's all the hard questions.
Right.
These are just your opinion now.
Okay.
What draws you to comics? What draws you to this culture?
I mean, I've always been a fan of any kind of storytelling, whether it's a movie, a video game, and comics are definitely a really important. Just visual novels are perfect for telling any kind of story. I think it gives you an idea, but you can still sort of take your mind with the voices and everything like that. Like, I think it's extremely important, and I think it's a really great medium to just tell a story.
I'll wait for that
I
to
know.
stop. The mic is pretty good about only getting like
Right here.
a couple. Yeah, so we
are,
should be
maybe under
good.
speaker? Oh.
We should be pretty good for that question, but
Many more. Come on out to the lobby at the edge of the hall and bid on the charity auction yearbook.
I know, right?
yeah.
very much.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Okay.
Okay.
stop.
All right. You ready? Okay. Zombies. Zombies are on the rise.
Yeah, they have been, yeah.
Why do you think there's such a resurgence of zombie films, TV shows, everything?
My original theory for zombies, like I love horror movies, and which each different genre of horror movies, it brings out a fear that people have. I think for zombies, it's a fear of people. It's a fear of a population and being overwhelmed and people around you. You don't trust, you don't know. And I think that's the true fear behind zombies, and I think that gets to a lot of people. A phobia of literally everyone else that exists coming to get you is probably a big fear.
And
I think it's cool, but
I think it's cool too, and I'm sure it probably manifests even more so when you're in a place like this where there's just a
True.
lot of people. All of a
Yeah.
sudden you go, what if they all just turn to a zombie?
you wouldn't know because it's a con.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
That's the
You
best
just
part.
Kinda,
There's people
you'd
dressed
be
as
like,
zombies.
wow, you're really good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
How do you feel about diversity and representation in comics today?
I think it's extremely important. I feel like when it goes to mainstream media, especially like from a comic to a movie, I think a lot of things get whitewashed, and a lot of people and a lot of cultures aren't represented. I think it's a big problem when it goes to big media. Things get changed. Like with Guardians of the Galaxy, there were a lot of characters that were like LGBT and people of color. Like, no one was really represented in that. Like, I just feel like that's something that's important and needs to come out. And the fact that it doesn't with big mainstream media is a problem, but I think in comics it's really happened a lot, and that's excellent. I think
Yeah.
it's made reaches, and things are becoming more popular that way. So
Do you think
I'm
they're
happy it's
going
in
to
comics.
see that it's working in comics and maybe someday move it over?
I really hope so. You know, it's hard because we've made some strides, but not enough. I think a lot of things need to change, or a lot of things need to come out into the public eye first.
Yeah.
Because I think people in movies would enjoy it a lot. Like, people who go to see comic movies, if they see their favorite character that they identify with, it'll be the best. They'll get blown out, and I think people will realize that. But I think the fact that, big movie companies, they're just afraid that maybe that's too much for the general
Yeah.
public, and they want to make everything neutral, and
I was actually happy and surprised with Arrow this season that they
you know,
actually went there.
I'm happy about that too. I haven't quite caught up yet, but I had a lot of friends who were like, you really need to see it now
Yeah.
because that's something that's happening.
Yeah, and then
So.
it's great hearing that make its stride, but then I heard that Constantine, they took out that aspect.
Really?
They took out that he's bi.
Right. I feel like they have to make a choice because it is,
Yeah.
I don't know. I understand, but at the same time, I don't. Like,
Yeah.
you can definitely make that something that happens. So.
Exactly. Well, thank you talking
Yeah,
with us today,
no
and
problem.
enjoy the con.
I will. Thanks so much.
Thank you for talking with us today. I have a few questions. A couple of them are actually like date questions. The rest are opinion questions.
Awesome, let's do it.
Okay. When do you think the first comic strip as we know it was?
You mean like year?
Yeah, roughly.
Well, I know the year is like not 1830 or 40. I think it's 1840. I think.
1842.
Oh, okay, cool. I was close.
You were close.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. I don't think anybody's gotten it other than the one person who actually works at an entertainment museum.
Oh, okay, cool.
Now, character-based merchandise, like the T-shirts, the action figures, when do you think that trend started?
The comics came around in probably the late 1800s. Because there was comics in the 1900s, so probably late 1800, 1890. That's a guess.
You are correct.
Yeah, man, Daryl K. I know everything, yo.
Nice guess on that one.
Yeah, man.
Okay, what draws you to comics, the culture, the entertainment? What draws you to it?
Yo, comics is my life, dude. Like, I love comics because it's like an escape for me. It's like an imagination. I mean, it's just like comics, man. I probably got into them just because I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid. I grew up on a lot of the 90 animated shows and like the old 1960 Hanna-Barbera and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's how I got into comics. So comics mean a lot to me. I love how comics can be funny, how comics can be serious, how comics can have undertone, how they can touch on political stuff, make you question like. It's like a different world, but you're still here in this world. And you can like leave this one and go to a different world. I love comics, dude.
Awesome. Okay, now there's a lot of zombie films, zombie TV shows already out. Why do you think zombie entertainment is on the rise?
Honestly, I probably couldn't really tell you, but it's a fling, just like the whole vampire thing, the whole zombie thing, the whole reality show craze. We just go through these flings and stuff that comes around, I think, in culture. I mean, some things catch on at certain times, some things don't. I just think right now is zombie time. It'll die out eventually.
Okay, and now, how do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in comics?
Woo, buddy, you ready for that answer? Now, let me talk to you about this. I get upset, Joe, because I feel like some superheroes get different requisition. Let me give you a great example. Green Arrow, the new 52 Green Arrow, right, got like 12, 13 different writers, yo. They switched writers so many times just because nobody was buying the comics, but they wanted that superhero to succeed. Mr. Terrific or like Status Shock or whatever, yo, cancel. They didn't even try. I don't like how sometimes comic book companies like says like, yo, we want this guy to be our hero. We're going to give him a chance, but then don't give him all that many writers. Like, I think it's unfair, and I see it a lot with the minority characters. I don't like how a lot of the black superhero comics lately been getting canceled. They've been getting shine. It's like DC has their set with their big three and Marvel has their set with their big three. It kind of really makes me mad to a certain extent. Like, I don't like all black superheroes, how a lot of them, like, what's what black superheroes always having black in front of the name? Black Adam, Black Spider. There's no need for the black in there. Miles Morales, a black Spider-Man. Why his costume got to be black, yo? That gets on my nerves, yo. Like, well, how come he just can't be Spider-Man blue and red? Why I got to have some representation of black? That stuff really gets to me. It's like, I feel like the diversity and stuff in comics is really messed up and it really needs to change. Like, it just really gets to me how you can have, like I said earlier, like Green Arrow. We're going to change writers 15 different times. Static, nah, yo, it sucks, yo. We're not going to give him a new writer, yo. He just canceled. Like, I don't like that. That's not cool, yo. Just like the whole thing, like, DC owns Milestone. And Icon is literally Superman except with extra powers. But they'll never give Icon the shine that Superman is or whatever. And I feel like it's because he's a black superhero. Same thing with Marvel. You got a guy there called Blue Marvel, who's Superman Sentry and Dr. Manhattan combined, and he's a black superhero, and they never give him any shine. It just makes me mad, yo. I don't like that. Like, why was Cyborg the only Justice League not to have a solo comic? That gets to me. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, they all had solo comics, except Cyborg. Why didn't Cyborg get a solo comic? Because he a black superhero, man. That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. Black superheroes, yo, we gotta respect them. The female superheroes, too. Like, I'm tired of, like, female superheroes not getting the shine they deserve and stuff. Like, all that stuff makes me mad. It pisses me off. I just feel like, honestly, the world's too sensitive nowadays. I get that, you know, people get offended by certain stuff for real, but I just feel like the world's too sensitive. You can't have the fun you used to have with comics no more. Like how back in the day, Wonder Woman joke weakness was bondage. The only way you could stop Wonder Woman was to tie her by her legs and by her hands or whatever, like a bondage type thing. But that's not her weakness no more because it's too risque and stuff. And it's like, nah, yo, we a little too sensitive nowadays, like with things like that. I mean, it's cool and everything, but female superheroes, they need more shine too, man. Like, the whole thing like with Power Girl. We're going to change her outfit because her breasts are really exposed, and people are getting offended by that. It's like, no, that's one of the things Power Girl is known for. Why you got to change it just because a couple people are offended by it? It's not like a world outrage or nothing like that. Just stuff like that. Like, when it comes to female superheroes and that type, I just feel like we're a little too sensitive and we're actually a little too sexist. And they deserve a little bit more shine as well. Like, I was just having a conversation with a friend and she asked me, like, yo, are there any other black female superheroes besides Storm? And I was like, of course they are. You got Bumblebee. You got a couple Star Sapphires that are black. You got, what's the girl name? You got the Daughters of the Dragon. She's black. You got a lot of other black female superheroes. Rocket. You just, don't get to hear about them a lot, A lot of people, they don't know their stuff, yo. That's why I encourage people to read comics, yo. Pick up a book. Reading's fundamental. Seriously.
Well, thank you for talking with us today.
Yeah, no problem.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the con.
Yeah, yo. You do Daryl K, yo. Best nerd in Baltimore, yo. Nobody knows more than me.
Thank you for talking with us today. What draws you to comics and entertainment?
Let's see. I'm entertained by it for one. But also, what I like about comic books is the person who creates them is in control of everything, from the way the characters talk to the way things look. It's not like TV where you have to have an actor portray it and then, you have to work on what's in your surroundings. You create everything with your hands yourself, and it's not like a book where you have to leave up some of it to imagination of the reader.
So that really, does that inspire you to do something your own?
Yeah, hopefully I'll start it, but I really want to write my own comic, like series of short illustrated stories, and I started at least doing some concept art, and I wrote the scripts out, so I really hope I do that soon.
And what do you feel about the culture, the Comic-Cons, the people coming together? Obviously, you're dressed up.
Oh, I love it. I started getting into it last year, and I went to a con called Otakon in the same location, and I met up with a bunch of people who were dressed up as Avengers, and there were a lot of Lokis that year. And we all hung out, and now we all talk still. And so I have my Avengers friends, and then I do a Digimon, so I have my Digimon friends. I do a Batman cosplay, so I have my Batman friends. And every year, at least once a year, we meet up and we hang out, and they're all just wonderful people, and we all have so much fun. It's way better than, just going out to a bar on the weekend.
Cool. Okay. Now there's a lot of zombie films, TV shows, books. Why do you think there's a resurgence of zombies in our culture?
I would really say it's, from a lot of people, they like to think of it as a survival thing. It's like a challenge to them. So they like to be like, oh yeah, if I was in a situation, I would do it. So it's like, people who like to run marathons, it's like that, but in your head. But also because there's a lot of biological warfare being talked about, especially since anthrax in early 2000s, and then Ebola and stuff like that, weaponizing diseases. So people think, what if that could happen? And it's 28 days later where a disease ends up making you angry and biting people.
Okay. Now, last question. How do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in comics?
I think there needs to be more diversity. And I get a little annoyed when they go back to characters that were, a white male and they make it a minority without any reason to do it. So I was a little bit annoyed with Nick Fury, but then I remember some people were mad about the Spider-Man. But with Spider-Man, that actually had a reason. It wasn't actually they just made Peter Parker black. They made, they had a whole backstory about his powers changing. The same with Thor when he became a woman. It's not actually Thor, it's a woman who got the power of Mjolnir. So it wasn't just they changed it just to adhere to somebody's need from diversity. But I think they need to make original characters for each one. And instead of just going back and changing one character to fit something so they feel like they've met their quota.
Well, thank you for talking with us today, and actually I have one other question. Aren't you my intern?
You gotta go.
Thank you for talking with us today. How are you liking the con so far?
I really enjoy it. This is actually my third year doing it.
So you've seen it grow. I've heard this is the first year they did 3 days.
Every year beforehand, it was always just the 2 days, and then they just got more artists are coming out, more story writers, and as it was getting bigger, they realized that they needed to expand it a little more and do some more panels. So yeah, this is the first year of 3 days, and I think it definitely helps so that it's not all bunched and it's not completely crowded at all in the 2 days it was before.
Cool. All right, so I have a few questions. Some of them are actually answer based, and the other rest are opinion based.
Okay.
But we'll get the hard ones out of the way first. When do you think comics, as we know it, comic strips, first started?
Ooh. I'm going to say, I would say 1940s.
You're off by about 100 years. It was 1842.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yep. 1842 was Obadiah Oldbuck. It's real popular with the kids nowadays.
I've heard the name passed around, yeah.
Yeah. The circles, you either know or you don't know.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, now, along those same lines, like the shirts you're wearing, character-based merchandise, when do you think that started?
Oh, man. I haven't seen any Obadiah shirts, so I'm going to probably say 1900s?
Close. 1890.
1890. I missed it by that much.
You were real close.
Yeah.
You were closer than the century. All right, those are the hard ones. Those are out of the way.
Okay.
What draws you to comics, to entertainment, to this lifestyle, this culture?
It's a lot of things. It's if you're really invested with comic books, it gives you a chance to meet the people behind it, kind of get some insight into how they came up with the characters, how they came up with the stories, their approach to the designs. It also introduces you to artists that you may never have heard of before, or comic books you are the more obscure, kind of brings them more to like the mainstream kind of sense. And it's also it's a fun little way just to kind of get a big group of people together and just kind of have fun. I mean, I've never really seen any sort of issues where there was anyone causing trouble or anything, and this is a very laid-back, respectful, audience in terms of the conventions.
What about just comics in general? What got you interested in comics? Why are you still interested in comics?
I first got into comics because just little kid imagination. It was very it appealed to me. It was just very imaginative, very creative, all the different kind of stories. I mean, I started with Ninja Turtles, Batman, the basics, that kind of stuff. As I got older, and I kind of parted from comics for a little bit, but then I kind of fell back in when I'm like, okay, so comics, some are made for kids, but they actually have some that are, for the young adults, for the adults, and the more mature storylines. It still grabs my attention to this day, and I'm envious of anyone who can draw or write stories that that people can put into the comic books. It's just impressive what they can do with a single character. Like everyone's heard of Batman, Superman, but different artists and different writers have their own different takes on it. So it's always good to kind of compare and see how they're gonna take this one particular character and put them in a different direction that you may never have expected before.
It's almost like, and from you saying that, just thinking about it, we have like the Grimm's fairy tales and those where people do their own interpretations. It seems like some of these iconic comic book characters will be that for our generation.
I definitely agree with that, because I mean, when you've got the landmark characters, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, X-Men, they've been around for years, like just the decades, and you have to find ways where they're still relevant, that they can still kind of captivate people, where it's not just you telling the same story over and over again, or running the same plot or story arc. Trying to, maybe instead of focusing on this one character, maybe you focus on this group, or you go from the group to this one single character, or you just put them in a whole completely different storyline. With comics, I mean, it kind of there's an endless world of possibilities, where there's even been events where it's been where everything that's happened before this particular event has just been wiped clean, and now it's a new slate, and it kind of gives the characters to kind of start over again, almost like a remake, a rebirth of the character, and kind of take them into a new direction for new fans, but also still grab the attention of current readers.
Excellent. Okay, shifting focus a little bit.
Sure.
Zombies. There's zombie films, there's zombie TV. Zombies are everywhere. Why do you think they're coming back in our culture?
Because they're a very unique sort of monster in our society. Like, the other kind of like old school Hollywood monsters had a motivation to what they would do. Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the Mummy, and they all have their purpose for being there. Why they were who they were. With zombies, anybody can be a zombie. Zombies basically just walk around, eat flesh, brains, what have you, and that's it. Some people, they try and take, like recent, Twilight, they try to make like vampires more romantic and sparkly. You can't really do it with zombies. Literally, like I said, you could take any character and just make them a zombie, and I don't know, it's sort of I guess I'm trying to think of the right word, macabre sort of like sense to it.
So you don't think there's going to be any romantic zombies like Brad Pitt playing a zombie?
Okay, if he's in it, I'm sure it's going to get made at some point, but...
Yeah, beautiful hair. And
oh, yeah.
He'll have the hanging jaw, but the hair.
It's like, I'm trying to think of a movie where it's like a river runs through it with zombies. He's just...
I might actually watch that.
Exactly.
Okay, and the last question. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in comics?
I think there definitely is diversity, and you can kind of see that they are finding ways to become more diverse and expand out. So even to the point where they're changing up characters. Like recently, there was a big announcement where Thor in the comic books was going to be made into a female. And to kind of change the audience a little bit and kind of bring in some new readers. And then you're finding out all these different sort of comic book heroes. I believe, I can't remember if it was Marvel or DC. Like they have a history of just bringing up like characters. There was a dev superhero. Well, there was a dev superhero. There was a superhero with a hearing aid. They pretty much just look at who their audience is. And they try really hard not to exclude anybody in particular because it's their way of saying that anybody can be a superhero. Doesn't matter what your limitations are. And so, there's always room to grow. There's always room to bring out, and focus on a new audience. So, I think as long as people keep changing and growing and become more diverse, so will comics. They're just going to follow right behind us.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the con.
Thank you very much for having me, and hope you enjoy your con as well.
Thank you. Okay. Hello today.
Hello.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
All right. When do you think comics started?
When the first issue of Deadpool was released.
How was that for you?
It was the greatest. Changed comics forever. Revolutionized the way comics are. Probably the best comic to date.
Of all time.
Of all time.
What do you think of your movie?
What movie? The Wolverine? That never happened.
Yeah, that never happened?
No, they haven't made my movie yet.
Okay. How old do you think character-based licensed merchandise is?
Old as Stan Lee.
Old as Stan Lee.
He's pretty old.
He's pretty old.
Like 1,000?
Actually,
Excelsior!
It's actually less than 1,000, but
less than
pretty
1,000?
old. It's about
we close? Price is Right rules? Can we do that?
You'd have to go down a little bit. It's about
5. I win. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Is this thing on?
Is this? I don't know. Is it? Hold on a second. Talk into it.
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Testing.
Okay.
Testing.
I heard it.
Testing.
All right. What draws you to comics and entertainment in general?
What draws me to comics? Usually an artist. He takes out a pen and he draws it in.
And then you just exist.
And I exist.
Okay. Well, how do you feel about the recent rise in zombie films?
Well, the zombies are rising because they're undead and they're coming back to life because of the fact that they're zombies. You know who's a good zombie? Solomon Grundy. He was born on a Monday. You heard of this guy? Have you heard of him? Have you heard of him? That's the best zombie ever. The rise of zombies, it's great. Zombies are real. Lock your doors.
Okay. And then here's the other one. What do you feel? Your chicken is assaulting my microphone.
Pay no mind to him.
Okay. What do you feel about diversity and representation in comics?
Diversity is good. Everyone should be different because that's diversity. Diversity is being different. And comics are drawings. People should be different in drawings.
Excellent. Well, thank you very
It's
much.
got to be the textbook answer, right?
You would assume.
That's it. That's the best answer anybody can give.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Deadpool. Okay.
Thank you.
So, we're here today at Baltimore Comic-Con. Thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. When do you think comics, as we know it, like comic strips, started?
I think it's earlier than people thought. I think there was a French comic maybe in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
1842.
All right.
Now, character-based merchandise, like licensing, when do you think that started?
Thor? 30s, 40s? That's a guess.
Is actually 1890.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
surprising. That's surprising.
Okay, now we're done with the hard questions. These are all opinion now.
Okay.
What drew you to comics, the movies, the culture? What draws you in?
Do you mean like influence or?
Why do you do this? Why do you enjoy this stuff?
For me personally, my mom introduced me to it. She started out with video games, and from there I just enjoyed the fantasy, the action, the art especially. That's where I...
For me, it's the sequential art. It's the blending of art and writing. I've always loved that. I think it's such a beautiful mode of storytelling, and I love that you can have everything, just like you can with film. Comedy, humor, horror, very serious political commentary, all of it's really relevant in the comics. It's a safe place to do it.
Excellent. And a little bit different of a question, but the same idea. There's been a recent trend in zombie films, zombie TV shows coming back. Why do you think they're so popular now?
That's for you.
Is that me?
You're the zombie person.
I'm the zombie person. I think it's really not about the zombies in those stories. For example, The Walking Dead is very popular right now, both graphic novel and show. I think it's more about the people in the zombie world. It's how does humanity tackle things that are out of their control. And I think with, sadly, a lot of instability in today's culture with wars, famine, stock market crashes, you name it. It's kind of how does humanity survive and go through the worst of times. So that's my humble opinion. I think the best zombie stories are not about the zombies. They're about the people in that world.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. How do you feel about today's representation and diversity in comics? Do you think they're doing a good job, bad job?
That's a good question. That's maybe a Thor question, freaking question.
I think right now I think it's a good blend. The only thing I would change, which I notice they are changing now, is more clothing on the feminine figures. That is what I'm enjoying more of, and rather than skimpy outfits that make us look weak.
I think Marvel is doing a really good job of trying to diversify their characters in their universe. We have a female Thor now, which was just announced, which is really exciting.
I'm actually looking forward to reading that.
As am I. Her too as well. But I think we're seeing a lot more diversity too. I think even in terms of writers and creators, for a long time it was such a male-dominated culture in the world of comic creation. So now we're seeing a lot of women writers. We're seeing a lot more emphasis on different cultures being presented in the writing itself. So I'm encouraged. I can't wait to see where we are a decade from now.
Excellent. And one last thing. Can I hold your hammer real quick? Is that okay?
That's a big honor.
Oh, wait, you might want to hold on. Sorry.
You are
Not worthy. Thank you very much. Thank you for talking with me today. Want to know what draws you to comics? What brings you to this community?
Well, for me, it's the whole fantasy. It's just interesting to see what can be done on paper, because it obviously can't happen in real life. But it's interesting to see it, and then of course you got the movies that are just making it better. Also for that group of kids who grow up with it, they could relate. Some of us just like the art, some of us just like the characters. It's usually how it's done.
I've been a big fan of superheroes my whole life. It's just kind of natural. It's always fun. And then my daughter, got me to come into the cons with her, And then it just kind of took off from there and kind of multiplied. And then it's just, you go to one, you can't stop going to the other, and you're like, no, I'm not going without, getting dressed up to it. And it is a fun thing because you go and you literally get to be a superhero for a day.
And is it a family affair for you?
When possible. Unfortunately, this is the first one I wasn't able to bring her with me, but absolutely. Whenever I get a chance to do it, we're partners when we do that.
Do you find like a bonding in that?
Oh, absolutely. Because then we pick out, her costume. She's like, for me, it's not as big of a deal. I'm kind of, old school, comics, DC or Marvel. She's hardcore in anime, and it's very particular. And not only is that, she's also an amazing artist. So she kind of takes it a step further. She's, not only started off to begin with, but then she's also making her own outfits. And, I just love watching her do what she does.
Wow. Okay. Do either of you know when comics, as we know it, like comic strips, started?
I just know it was way past the 1940s. That's all I can say. Because I know like Superman and stuff was before he was like DC or Action Comics. He was like
Detective Comics.
I believe so. It was like before all of that. I believe they were like on like newspapers. They were like just little strips in newspapers. There was like little runs with them, and then they got more popular as the years went on.
All right. Well, I'll blow your mind. 1842 was the first paneled comic.
Really?
Yep.
Anybody that we know of?
Yeah.
It was. I have it written down, so I don't. Nope. I believe it was French. It was Obadiah Oldbuck.
You almost had me to Obadiah. I was thinking Iron Man. That's the first thing that came to head.
Nope. Not even anybody. Nobody remembers them, but that was when comics really first started.
Well, somebody's got to start it off.
Okay. Another question like that. Licensing merchandise, like you can go buy Punisher action figure. When do you think things like that started?
Action figures?
Well, just merchandise based on characters.
I would probably have to say, my guess would think a little bit after, comics, came into being and then they became popular. I'm going to guess between the 50s and 60s, and I'm probably wrong because I was way off with the other one you told me. So, but that's, as far as with the, other comics kind of coming to the front running then, I know I'm wrong, but that's my guess.
Do you have a guess?
Not an exact date, but since comics started way back then, which I didn't know, I'm going to say early 1900s.
1890.
Jesus.
Okay, a couple more questions, then we're done. With the recent resurgence of popularity in zombie films and television shows, why do you think they're coming back?
Well, that's a great question. The thing that I think that there's so much of a surge of that, because it's kind of been around obscurely for a while. I think just with all the things that are going on around the world and all the different, possibilities people are wondering about, it's kind of like a common bond through everybody. Everybody has that little bit of curiosity is, what possibly could happen? What's real? How much of the rainbow and the serpent in the rainbow is actually the case? When you go into if you actually do take the time to find out where it came from and the ideas, and then you figure out, some of these things were not totally off. We don't know about any kind of spreading or that kind of stuff, but I think it's a combination of that combined with a lot of the fears they have of things spreading in different viruses around the world.
Okay.
And Resident Evil definitely, helped kick that one into gear.
There's nothing like a fear of a pandemic to get people interested.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last question for you two. How do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in comics and entertainment today?
I'm actually fine with the way things are changing. Like, obviously, as a black cosplayer, I would like to see more black characters up front, but I have no problem with the way it is. Like, I just want more of the obscure characters, the ones that don't get enough airtime, the ones that people don't know. Like, for instance, Red Hood. I got called like Batman Beyond and Red Mask today, all the time. I'm like, I want to see characters like this, get more attention.
I'm colorless, racist. I don't see those kind of things. I'm not going to say I'm not a conservative kind of guy. There's certain things that if you look, I won't get into it because I don't want to, go there with anybody else, but certain things you'll see that would be out there, these days, not only, putting it out there, but promoting it, glorifying it. 10 years ago, it would have been like, oh my goodness, and, it's not just a personal thing, and it's not just a conservative thing, but if you kind of look at a lot of things, and I'm very kind of studied not just in United States history and government and politics and what's on the plate and what's being presented, and then kind of the ultimate string pullers over there. It's some of the things I couldn't be happier about. I love that they put those things out there. Some things not so much.
Okay.
Some things that I just think there's certain things, live your life, do what you want to do, but I don't know if I would walk down the street waving a flag saying I'm proud of it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with us today. Thank you for talking with us today. How are you liking the con?
Pretty good, man. It's really good. It's really a lot of fun.
All right, so I have some questions. The first couple you actually have to guess on. The rest are opinions. So,
Okay.
first question is, when do you think comics first started?
I believe it started in like the early 1900s, but I know like the very first superhero comic was like in 1938, like around World War II. So, other than that, I'm not sure.
It actually started in 1842.
Oh wow, really?
Yes. Whoa. That's a great thing about cons is people just yell and everybody turns and looks and tries to figure out what's going on.
I know, man. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
All right, and how old do you think character-based merchandise is? Like the T-shirt you're wearing. When do you think that first started?
That's a great question. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure.
It's actually in the late 1800s, 1890.
Oh, really? What was it?
Something called the Brownies.
Brownies. Okay. Cool.
All right, now what draws you to comics? What makes you interested in makes you want to read them and watch the movies?
The characters, like their special abilities, the powers, they do things that us normal human beings can't do. So naturally, that's going to draw you to it. Plus the story, the writing is like fantastic. So.
Okay, now there's a bunch of zombie films. Walking Dead, there's new TV shows, zombies are on the rise. Why do you think they're coming back?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm a fan of Walking Dead, but I believe that has mostly to do with the writing of the show. Everything else, I'm not quite too sure why it's becoming so popular nowadays.
Okay, and last question. How do you feel about the current state of diversity and representation in comics?
It can use some work. I would like to see a lot more female-led superheroes and also different ethnicity. I feel like they're trying, but we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet.
The effort's being made, but not quite enough.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you for talking with us today, and I hope you go and enjoy the con.
All right, thank you. You too.